A retrieved Reformation is largely based off of O. Henry's own experiments in prison, and it follows the story of Jimmy Valentine, a bank robber who just been released from prison from his crime. So basically, this one is largely based off on O. Henry's own experiments. Now, in order to demonstrate reading comprehensions of story, we're often asked to identify the essential elements of the story. In this case, we'll break it down to essential part of narrative that we have studied as part of this course. First, the protagonist and the antagonist. The protagonist, which is the main character, is Jimmy Valentine, and the antagonist is the character who oppose the main characters. Who opposed Jimmy in the story is the detective, Ben Price. He's trying to catch Jimmy and prove his guilt once Jimmy starts robbing again. Though the story begins with Jimmy's time in prison for his subsequent release, much of the story is set in Elmore, Arkansas, which is where Jimmy ended up after hitching a ride on mail hack, a horse-drawn buggy that carried mails deliveries from place to places. Now remember that the structure of the story can be described using a plot mountain, also known as Freytag pyramids. So first part is explosions and rising action. Now after being given $5, a railroad ticket, a clothes and a cigarette, Jimmy get released from prison. Now he used his friend Mike Dolan and some connection from his criminal life to obtain a governor's pardon. Now we learn more about his past crime and the fact that he's the best safe cracker on the East Coast. After taking the train to the cafe owned by his friend Mike Dolan, Jimmy goes to his old room and removes his old bank robbing tool from a hidden panel on the wall. Now ditching the villainous ugly clothes from prison, Jimmy dons his fashionable clothes and begins robbing more banks. The familiar processions of Jimmy robberies catch the attention of the detective, Ben Price, who was the one that arrested Jimmy for his crime before. Just before committing a mere haste under the robbery in Elmore, Arkansas, however, Jimmy fell in love with Annabelle Adams, which is the daughter of the bank owner, and just decided to start his life over again as the sharply dressed Ralph D. Spencer, an honest owner of a shoe sale company, rather than a bank robber. So that's just the rise in action. First, you can see that Jimmy Valentine is a person who likes to go in his own way, and he's, lazy and all. He just wants to go rob banks. But the rising action, you would think that he got caught in the jail again for his crime. However, he just fell in love with some lady, and then he decided to become an honest person. So that's just a retrieved Reformation from one of O. Henry's stories.